Hello and welcome to Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. I'm Becky Parker Geist and I'm your host. Audiobook Connection is your place to learn about the audiobook creative process and for authors to learn valuable tips on producing and marketing your audiobooks. This podcast is sponsored by Pro Audio Voices, helping great stories come alive through audiobook production and marketing. Hello, and thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to talk about something that I get a lot of questions about. Very frequently, authors are asking me about the best way to launch their audiobook. And the question is usually asked as, is it better to have my audiobook edition ready when I launch my print and ebook editions so it all happens at the same time, as in a coordinated launch? That's what I call it. Or is it better to launch it separately from my print and ebook editions? Sort of what I would call a rollout approach to the launch. So that's what we're going to dive into today. Well, first of all, the beginning of the answer to that question is going to be around what is your marketing plan? Have you mapped out a strategy for your launch? My next questions typically are around what the plan is for the launch. So for some authors, they are planning to devote a sort of campaign launch period and a launch date that they're going to really fully engage in launching their books or book. And I'm using the term book in this case to just talk about the content, not necessarily relating to the format of that content. So it could be print, ebook, audiobook. All right. Or are they really looking at the big picture long term, where they're planning to launch as a part of what they're already doing in their ongoing marketing? Or it may be that they're at the start of that journey, their marketing journey, but they do have long-term plans to keep up a regular marketing campaign. If you're an author or publisher that is not only planning to have one book, but you're planning to roll out a series or multiple books, then you're always going to be better off. This is true in general for any authors that are, or anyone trying to market anything. You're going to be better off with an ongoing marketing plan and activity than if you just try and do sort of a one-off approach. But I do understand that many authors, especially if they are just doing or have plans to write one book and launch one book, that they may not necessarily be planning to put in some long-term marketing effort. So that is the piece of the strategy that I want to look at when I'm talking with authors about what to do or how to approach their audiobook launch specifically. So I will start with the approach of doing one launch campaign and then, with the idea that maybe then you're not planning on really putting a lot of effort and emphasis on it once you have done that campaign. And the reason I'm going to start with that one is not because it's the better approach, because it's not, but it is what many authors do, and I understand it, and it all depends on what your personal goals are. So I'm going to do that one first because I want to sort of get that one out of the way, and then we'll talk about what are the better ways to approach an ongoing marketing campaign for your book and audiobook. If your plan is to do this shorter one-time push, then it is probably going to be better for you if you have all formats of your book ready at the same time. The advantage of having them all ready at the same time is that when you are pushing it out, that information, letting your followers know that your book is available, then regardless of what format they prefer, it will be available to them. Now, I will also say that there are opportunities whereby if you have, let's say, your print and ebooks are ready to launch and your audiobook isn't quite ready, it can be set up as a pre-order. Now, most platforms don't take pre-orders, but you can set it up and have complete control over it on the Amplify Audiobooks platform. So that's where I would recommend that you set it up as a pre-order if that's something that you would need to do when you're doing a coordinated launch. I also want to emphasize that if you're planning this one-time launch, if you don't have much of a following yet, then the best thing you can do early on, leading up to the launch date, the official date that you're releasing, you're publishing your book in whatever formats are available, then you're going to want to spend those as much time as you can in advance building your following. And the build of that following is going to be most powerfully achieved if you can get people to sign up for an email list. It allows you to set things up in such a way that you control the information more easily. You control the messaging more easily than if you're only using social media. Social media is great in many ways. It does require a social media approach. And when I say that, I mean, we think about networking, when we think about how are we connecting with people. If we're connecting with people online, typically the connections need to have some substance, not just be a sales push. If all you're doing is saying, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, no one's really going to want to do that because it feels like all you're doing is asking, and not giving anything in return. People want to get to know you, and that is where social media can be really beneficial in that getting to know you way. So when you're sharing content on social media as you're leading up to your book launch, it's fine to let people know about the book that's coming, why it's important to you, who you are, why you wrote it in the first place. There's a lot that you can do to share where you're not asking anyone to do anything in response except maybe, comment or reply to you in some way. That can be valuable. Or to sign up for your newsletter so that you can let them know when your book launches. One of the best calls to action in social media is to sign up for your newsletter. So again, if you're doing a coordinated launch where you're going to have all of your formats ready at the same time, and you have a time period that you're leading up to that launch date, then you want to use that time effectively to build relationships, get people interested. Don't be asking them to buy right off the bat. During that time period, if you do have any of the formats or all the formats available on pre-order, you can include the link, but it's best initially, I think, to not go straight to the ask. It's one thing that I have heard again and again and again from marketing professionals is that you want to have at least 80% of your content on social media being material that is helpful to your following. So it's a give, it's a relationship, it's building that relationship. And that is where you build a powerful, a strong base and basis for someone to then be interested in checking out your content when it becomes available. Let's just take a short pause, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the rollout version of an audiobook launch and how that can look, and I'll give you my recommendations for the way to have the most beneficial effect the most impact, the most results with your audiobook launch. So we'll come right back and I'll share all of that. Would you like to earn more from your audiobook sales? If you're an author with an audiobook, you may have noticed that royalties from Audible especially, and other platforms as well, are frankly kinda pathetically low, disappointingly low, and unfairly low considering what it cost you in effort and resources to create it. How is it the retailers are the ones making all the money off your work and investment? As someone who started in the audiobook industry in 1981, I've found it frustrating that authors keep getting shortchanged. The good news is that Pro Audio Voices just launched Amplify Audiobooks, a direct sale audiobook platform for authors that puts you back in the driver's seat. Earn 65% of the gross sales price that you set. Compare that to the percentage of the percentage that retailers give. Run promotions on schedule whenever you want. Create coupon codes. Build community with your customers since you'll know who they are and how to contact them. Work with a caring, responsive, supportive team to help you succeed all along the way. Get help with marketing. Get paid weekly. We're helping audiobook authors who are frustrated by painfully low royalties and the barriers that prevent them from managing their own products and customers. Amplify Audiobooks is a direct sale platform that enables authors to earn much higher royalties and have way more control. We're disrupting the audiobook industry by putting authors first. Get started today at proaudiovoices.app or go to proaudiovoices.com and click on the Distribution Amplify link. Join the movement. So when we're thinking about the rollout approach to your book launch, you can do that with each format. So you could, for example, start with your ebook and let your ebook followers, those who are interested in getting the ebook format, and then you maybe roll out the print edition, and then maybe you roll out the audiobook edition. So you are spreading it out. That gives you the opportunity to have really valid news to share with your following. And remember that when we buy something, or even when we're interested in something, we don't necessarily always jump on the opportunity when someone reminds us about it. Oh yeah, I wanted to get that book. We don't always take action immediately. Many times it takes multiple reminders before the moment just happens to be perfect for you to actually go, and hit the buy button and go through the process. So the marketing campaign, and again, especially valuable if you are doing this over email marketing, but the marketing campaign then is a kind of drip system where you're reminding your followers about what's available to them, and you're meanwhile providing valuable content that will be meaningful to them along the way. That meaningful content is what keeps them interested in staying with you and not unsubscribing from your list, right? The rollout approach can be managed either through pre-order sales and or actual sales where the product is available, that format is available and ready for purchase. As I mentioned earlier, pre-order for audiobooks, it's not generally available for indie authors in particular, and so that can be harder to accomplish in the broad distribution, in those retail channels. But the truth is that that's not your best place to have your pre-order anyway. So let's just focus on pre-order for a moment, and let me dive a little deeper into that. When you want to do a pre-order, the very best place for you to do it, with your audiobook specifically, is on Amplify Audiobooks. The reason it's the very best place, there are multiple reasons. The first is that when you release your audiobook, you want to have, ideally, the highest royalties, and you want to know who bought your audiobook, especially first out of the gate. That's valuable information, right? When you first announce that your audiobook is available, those people who are waiting for it are the ones that are typically going to go get it right away, right? And so you want to capture those sales on Amplify audiobooks because you're going to earn so much more from those sales, and you're going to know who your customers are. You're going to be able to reach out to them. This is really, really valuable. I cannot overstate the value of that data, that customer data. So in terms of the launch of your audiobook, whether you're launching it in pre-order or whether you're launching it as already available, I highly recommend that you launch it first on Amplify Audiobooks. The other thing I wanted to share about the pre-order option is that even if you are able to get it up for pre-order through other retailers, which is challenging and requires that the audiobook already be fully produced and ready to go, and you have to have that available at least 2 months in advance, and there's no guarantees. It's like, why even bother? Okay. But the other thing about the pre-order on Amplify Audiobooks is that you can offer it at a special price. People love deals. So if you know or are planning to, let's say, sell your book for regular retail at $15, you might say that if you get it now on pre-order, it'll only be $10. Well, you know what? When you sell it at $10 on pre-order, you're still going to make more money than if you sold it for $15 on Audible, like way more. Having that ability to set a pre-order sale price is valuable, and it is something that you can control and do on Amplify Audiobooks, but not anywhere else. One of the things that you can do with your customer information once you have sales on Amplify Audiobooks, you can reach out to those people who have purchased your audiobook. And you may want to follow up immediately and thank them. You might ask who else they think they know that might be interested in the audiobook, with the idea that maybe they or you could reach out and let that other person know. So it's like developing your superfan base and asking for their help in spreading the word. That's something that's available to you when you have that customer information that, as I mentioned, is so incredibly valuable. You can also ask them when they have finished the audiobook to please write a review. The reviews can be posted on Amplify Audiobooks, and you can use those in your marketing in other places. Unlike Amazon, where they claim the rights to whatever people write on their website in their reviews, that you're not supposed to take that same copy and put it anywhere else. At Amplify Audiobooks, we are committed to your success. If you can use those reviews to help you get more customers, more eyeballs on your book, more ears listening to your audiobook, we think that is a win, and we want you to win. So we encourage that kind of the sharing of reviews. Now, I'm going to shift a little bit to talk about my recommendation, my top tip about how to launch your different formats. And I want to start off by saying that once you have all three formats and you're on Amplify Audiobooks, your most profitable format will be your audiobook. Now, I say that with the caveat that you control the pricing. So you might choose to give away your audiobook, and that's okay. You can do that. We have clients on the platform that do want to give away their audiobooks. Parkinson's Foundation, for example, has their titles for free on the platform, and that's an option for you. But assuming that you're trying to generate revenue, have income from your audiobook sales, and assuming that you price it at reasonable rates, your audiobook is most likely to be your most profitable format, specifically on Amplify audiobooks. I can't say the same thing as a general rule with your audiobook format because when it goes out through other channels like Audible, audiobooks.com, your royalties drop considerably compared to the Amplify Audiobooks platform. Now, coming back to my top tips for how to launch, knowing that you are going to receive the most benefit and value from your audiobook sales on Amplify Audiobooks, I recommend that you launch that first if you have all three formats already available. And I say available, I don't mean published, right? This is because we're talking about the launch. This is the way I did my audiobook for my novel, is I launched it on audio first. My marketing efforts were to drive traffic towards that format, and that's where my strength is, and I was excited to test out the Amplify Audiobooks platform in that way and found that it was indeed a very successful way to launch my book overall. So launching first with audio, and then the timing can be very spread out or it can be closer together. Depends. Again, you want to strategize. And there are so many elements and components to that. I have to generalize in terms of that timeline. But let's say, for example, you launch your audiobook and then a couple months later, you launch your ebook. Your ebook is likely to be your next most profitable format because it is also digital, unlike the print book. And then maybe you wait a couple months. And when I say wait, I mean you're busy marketing during that time, not that you're just sitting around and twiddling your thumbs. So then you, maybe a couple months later, you launch your print book, and then maybe a couple months after that, you launch on your audiobook out in the broader network of channels like Audible, audiobooks.com, etc. When you do it this way, you now have, with what I just described, 4 major launch events over the course of about 8 months. If you're concerned that when you launch your audiobook, people will ask you, well, wait a minute, I want the print book, and that's not released yet. If you're worried about losing any sales, you could set up your other formats on pre-order, and then they can go get it on pre-order if they are so inclined. And that way, they're able to make that purchase knowing when their format of choice will launch. But most likely, when you have this messaging that's going out by email on a regular basis, let's say maybe you have a brief weekly email where you're updating people and providing content, something that's going to keep them interested and engaged and wanting to open your emails. Then when that next format launches, they will be ripe and ready and expecting it. Sometimes what can happen with a coordinated launch where everything is ready all at the same time, it can feel like you're maybe a little short on news, unless you're doing events or showing up on podcasts as a guest, which is news that you can share. You may feel like, okay, I'm sharing other content, but now I have to figure out something else, that you want news to share, but you don't really have much news to share. Having the rollout version of the launch can help with that. If you are the writer of a series where you're releasing books. Let's say maybe you release about one book each year. Just think about the power of using this kind of rollout approach over time, over, say, 8 months. And then add into that you have the release of a new book. You have all this news of, what you're working on, and that can be great content to share as like the next book and the kinds of things that you like talking about, whether that's your characters or your writing process or whatever it is. So you have that kind of interesting content that you can share on a regular basis. And then you have these news events with your rollout. Then you really have a kind of a nice ongoing kind of strategy, marketing strategy that will carry you through the years on an ongoing basis if you're continuing to write. Now, you can do that with a book series. That's great. You can also do it if you're just writing different titles. If you are someone who has different kinds of offerings, such as coaching, for example, or maybe you do events or programs of some kind, workshops, that is then also, provides opportunities for valuable content to be shared along the way. And then these rollout events can happen. So just to sum up, you can do a coordinated, all at once, all formats available at the time of launch approach. Or you can do a rollout approach where you roll out each format, or you can also do print and ebook at the same time. But if you're going to do a rollout, I would recommend you spread it out with those as well. So you can do a rollout approach. I highly recommend that if your audiobook is ready to launch, when you're ready to start your launch rollout, that you actually roll out the audiobook first instead of putting it last. If you already have your book out there in print or ebook and you are just launching your audiobook, then you're already in a rollout scenario. In that case, I highly recommend that you launch first on Amplify Audiobooks and then wait a period, I would say at least a month or two, before rolling it out and submitting it for broader distribution to all the channels that aren't going to provide the same kind of benefit to you, even though they will be out there in places where people may be subscribers. That is, from my perspective, the main reason why you want to have your audiobook in those other locations. Because honestly, when we are indie authors, doing our marketing most often on those big platforms like Audible, unless people know where to find you and are looking for you, you're kind of going to get lost in the thousands and thousands of titles that are available there. So you want to be there for those people who automatically go to the different channels, whether it's Libro FM or audiobooks.com or whatever it is. Many people subscribe. And for those people, you want to be where they already are subscribers for their audiobooks. But for everybody else, you want to drive them to Amplify Audiobooks because it's going to be better for you and it's going to be better for them. Here's why it's better for them. Because I'm assuming you might be asking that. It's better for them because you are going to be able to connect with them. That makes it better for them. If they got your audiobook, they got it for a reason, right? They either wanted the entertainment or they wanted the information, whatever it is that your audiobook provides. They were after that. And now, when you can stay connected with them, they have the opportunity to get more of that, more value. And people like connection. Connection matters. And so they will be able to have that connection that they won't get with you on any other platform. The other reason is most of us, when we recognize that our spending dollars, the money that we use to buy things, when that goes straight to the creators. The world is a better place because the creators then are getting the kind of support that they not only deserve because they've done the work, right? They've paid for having the audiobook created. They've done all that creative work. Why should all the money then go into the pockets of, the billionaire retailers that are, really just profiting off the content that's created by the authors? The authors deserve a fair share. And when we understand that our spend dollars are going to those creators, dang, that feels good, right? So we're benefiting them in that way as well. And the more that all of us can participate in educating our customers about that, the better off everyone is going to be. I hope that this has been valuable. If you have any questions about your audiobook, whether it's production or distribution or marketing, we are here to help. Just go to proaudiovoices.com/get-started. That is going to take you directly to the Contact Us page where you can book a call. And we can talk specifically about your project and your launch. If this has been valuable and you would like to support my work here at Audiobook Connection Podcast, you can go to patreon.com/audiobook connection podcast and join the community there. I'm so grateful to my supporters. Thank you so much. Again, I hope this has been helpful. Have a great day, and let's make this world a better place through the stories we tell. Thanks for joining us for Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. Please take a moment to subscribe at audiobookconnection.com. The podcast is sponsored by Pro Audio Voices, helping great stories come alive through audiobook production and marketing. Learn more at proaudiovoices.com. Again, thanks for being with us, and please join us next week.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.